Welcome to the Awakened Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Get ready to create magic and miracles as you lean into your heart's desires. I believe not only does the heart want what it wants, but it knows. This show is a weekly deep dive into what it means to live from an awakened heart. I'll be sharing inspiring stories and real conversations with people just like you, who have turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. My mission is to show you how you too can be connected and heart-centered in every area of your life. Your journey to aligning with more love, more joy, and your wildest dreams come true starts now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Awakened Heart Podcast. Happy Valentine's Day in advance. I hope you find something, whether you've got a romantic love in your life, or if it's just love for yourself. I hope you find some time to do something special for yourself or doing fabulous with one of your loved ones, whether that could be a romantic partner, a husband, a boyfriend. Show love to your kids. It's an extra week to share some of that love that you have in your hearts. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with the remarkable Sophia Demas, a woman whose journey has been guided by an unwavering belief in the power of intuition, miracles, and divine intelligence. Sophia's story is one of incredible transformation. Starting her career in architecture, including working with visionary Buckminster Fuller, she then ventured into couture dress design before discovering her passion for counseling and psychology. At age 50, she earned her master's degree in the field and now works as an in-house counselor for the Salvation Army, helping ex-trafficked women rebuild their lives. Sophia believes that divine intelligence wants us to be happy, guiding us through dreams, messages, and coincidences to uncover our true purpose. These experiences have inspired her to write two deeply impactful books. Her first, The Divine Language of Coincidence, How Miracles Transformed My Life, explores how recognizing and acting on coincidences leads to miraculous transformations. Her second book, Consciousness Beyond Death, True Stories of Signs, Messages, and Timing, delves into the profound connections between life, death, and the signs that transcend both. Sophia's work has not only inspired readers worldwide, but also caught the attention of scientists, leading her to join the Scientific and Medical Network as their only non-scientist member. In this conversation, we'll explore how to listen to your intuition, recognize divine messages, and align with your life's true purpose. Get ready for a fascinating journey of self-discovery and spiritual awakening. Hi, Sophia. Welcome to the Awakened Heart Podcast.
Nancy, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, thank you for being on. Today, we're going to talk about coincidences and your two books that you have out. Well, we're going to dive into the one, but there might be some questions about your other one, your more recent one. So you wrote The Divine Language of Coincidence, and then you have your second book, Consciousness Beyond Death. But in this first part of the podcast, we're going to dive into the language of coincidence because there's so many things that when we can tune in, there's so much synchronicity and there's so many things that aren't necessary coincidences. They're messages from the divine. They're messages from maybe people that have crossed over, our guides, spirit and all that. So when we can tune into these coincidences, it's like really life becomes magical and miraculous. And I find from my own experience, you really begin to trust in your own self. And then you feel so aligned with everything that's going on in life. And not only just the life around you, but the life, what's going on in the world. No matter how things might seem on the world stage, you have this more connection with divine, and they're always giving you signs and signals and messages all the time. So you have such an interesting, you have such a diverse background where I don't think this came across in the intro, but I'm in Michigan. You were in Dearborn, Michigan, which isn't far from here. And your dad had moved you when you were 7 to Greece. And because it was so close to Russia and it was the Cuban Missile Crisis, your father moved you guys to Portland, Oregon. And then when you were 19, you began paying attention to coincidences. And because you paid attention to coincidences, you had mentioned that you never intended to get married or never had kids. And thank God you didn't really, like, you listened to like things, life had another plan for yourself. So you were married and then you adopted a daughter as well, a teenage daughter. So, I mean, you've had a career as an architect, the couture business, mental health, what is it? I can't read my own writing. A mental health counselor.
Yes.
That is it. Mental health therapist. I can't read. It's like a doctor's writing. So, and then you're working with the Salvation Army for ex-trafficked women. The huge background. So I gave a little bit of your background, but I would love to hear from you. You've had such a fascinating career journey from architecture to career to dress design and now counseling psychology and author. What inspired these major shifts in your life?
It was a process. So when I was in architecture school, all I wanted to do was to design a beautiful building. That's all I wanted to do. And I was not really interested in like the mechanics, but to create space that's absolutely beautiful, that makes people love being there. And my first job out of architecture school, and this is a bizarre story, the way that transpired, but I came to Philadelphia to work with Buckminster Fuller. And Buckminster Fuller designed the geodesic dome. And that was and he was my hero. I mean, how I ended up, working with my idol it still amazes me. Again, it was a series of meeting the right person at the right time. And so the beautiful building kind of went out the window because working with him, he was into solving the world's shelter problem. And he was such a humanitarian and to do it, economically, cover the most space with the lightest of materials. And so that changed my way of seeing architecture. And then, my last stint in architecture was designing biotechnology laboratories. Well, that was so far from beauty. And so I left the field and I started my dress designing business. And again, it was like, there's these beautiful women and I'm going to make beautiful clothes for beautiful women. Well, that got boring real quick because, you could put a sack on a beautiful woman and she's still beautiful, So I had two great assistants. And so we produced 30 sumptuous evening gowns for maternity and we rented them out. And that kind of put me on the national stage. And then I did a line for huge women. And what I observed was that some of my beautiful clients that were filthy rich, they were miserable women. And then there's these huge women that were just like confident and just, let's party now, So I thought, okay, something's wrong with this picture. And I determined that it was low self-esteem. And because they confided in me. And so I thought, well, I want to get to the heart of this and I want to help these women. So I went back to school and graduated with my master's in counseling psychology when I was 50. And then I designed this 12-workshop program called Living a Fearless Life, which was piloted in the Philadelphia prison system. And they noticed that these women's behavior changed for the better in within 12 workshops. But they wouldn't fund me, so I did it for different groups of at-risk women, and some of them were ex-trafficked women, ex-homeless women, women in recovery. And so what happened is I believe that this divine intelligence I believe, wants us to be happy and find our true purpose and helps us along. This divine intelligence, this knows what's best for us better than we do, and communicates via dreams, maybe meeting a stranger that just happens to say exactly what you were seeking to hear, or puts coincidences in our path. And the clue, the key, is to take action on the coincidence. Once you take action, then you may get the miracle, which is getting exactly what you need at the right time. So these things started to happen when I was 19. And what that one event was, I was having like real existential questions, issues that seemed to be unsolvable. And in a very short period of time, it was within 4 months, this man appeared and I had a dream. And the outcome of that, I will call it an event, because what ended up happening was both of my existential issues were solved and I was transformed. And I thought, how did that happen? And it was like, well, if I hadn't been there, I wouldn't have met him. And then the dream, and that was the most bizarre dream I've ever had. And he interpreted the dream, and the whole thing was just, to get what I needed at just the right time. So, and then I started paying attention to these things, and they just kept happening. And people would say, well, these things only happen to you. And I'll tell you, writing a book was not on my radar screen. I met with a medium like 16 years ago, which I had no desire to meet with a medium. But again, the way it happened was beyond me. And she told me that I was going to write a book. And I argued with her. I said, that's not in the cards. I said, first of all, I have nothing to say. And two, I'm a people person. I said, I'm going to sequester myself and write a book. And she listened very calmly. And then she said, word for word, she said, Spirit says when she's ready, there are many spirits here to help her and many hands on earth. And that's the way it went down.
Wow. Powerful message and now look at the course of your life here. And your book, The Divine Language of Coincidence, which centers around the idea that divine intelligence communicates with us in very clever ways. Can you share some experiences that you've had, any of the miracles or coincidences that have had a profound impact of your life?
Okay, so I'll give you two quick ones that produced exactly what I needed for my wedding. Okay, so one, and this will, they're good examples of what would have happened had I just let it go. Okay, so the one was I call my friend Anne, and a man answers that's not her husband. And I said, Anne, is Anne there? This man recognizes my voice and he goes, Sophia, is that you? He goes, it's Jerry. You called me. It's Jerry. And I knew who Jerry was because he has an accent, and I only know this guy socially. And he said, look, I'm late for a meeting. Can I call you later? And I said, Jerry, I said, promise me you're going to call me. You have to call me. And he goes, I promise. And I said, real quick, what is your telephone number? So I had misdialed but the last digit. And I get this guy from all of Philadelphia that I know, and he recognizes my voice, which I thought was pretty miraculous, So he calls me. And at the time, the Barclay Hotel. Okay, the Barclay Hotel is this old world, beautiful hotel. And so my husband, well, my fiance at the time, we decided to get married on 4th of July. And the wedding was October 4th. So that's just 3 months. So all the venues were taken. We couldn't find anything. And I thought, I don't care. My friend is a event planner. She'll make anything beautiful. And so everything was taken up, music, a photographer. So, we got a friend who was a photographer. He could do it. And I thought, okay, so somebody's going to play the organ in the church. I don't care. So he told him that, I was getting married and everything. And he offers me the ballroom at the Barclay. And then throws,
and
it was available. And yes. And it was,
miracle.
It was available. And because he was going to he turned it into a condo instead of a hotel. Mm-hmm. And then threw in the presidential suite for 2 nights, except that I had to invite him and his girlfriend to the wedding. So, okay, so that's one. The other one was I get a call from this woman. I had an Oregon's license plate, and she told me that she found my license plate on Rittenhouse Square. And I went, oh, great. She says, how should I give it to you? Well, we determined that she lived 2 blocks away, and which made sense, that she would find it close to my house. And I said, just put it through the mail slot. So she had a really nice little note about she loved Oregon. So 2 months later, this is, it's closer to the wedding. She calls me and she said, I know this will sound strange to you, but I just found your ATM card. Same person. And I don't lose cards, but I had gone to this ATM that I always would go to, one that would, you put it in and it spits it right out. Except this one kept it until the end. And so I kind of got confused. And I guess I just thought, I have it. So I left it in the ATM, where it says, do you want to make another transaction? So the next person could have wiped out my whole bank. But it was this woman. So she says, do you want me to put it in the mail slot? I said, no, we have to meet. You have to come to my studio. So she comes over, and I had a handmade soap from Oregon to give her. And as a result, she's a concert violinist, and she got her friend, a classical guitarist, to play my favorite music as I walked down the aisle, Concierto de Aranjuez. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the point here is, I could have, when Jerry said, I'll call you later, I go, you don't have to. I mean, I have nothing to talk to you about. It was an accident, And when she said, should I put it in the mail slot? I said, yeah, just put it through the mail slot. But see, I recognized that this is bigger than me, and it wasn't strategy or anything. It just came out. And that is kind of how.
So that's what you mean by taking action on a coincidence. So you guys met up. Is that what you mean by taking action?
Yes, it was like, no, you are coming here.
Meet up.
You're coming here. We need to meet. No, Jerry, you have to call me. Okay. So now there's another little string of coincidences that was more kind of divine. And again, it's not more important than the other, but basically, I discovered very close to, when I met my husband, that he had anger issues and he was a rager. It was all because of childhood issues. Like, I would do like a innocent gesture and he would take it that I was belittling him and he would go into a rage. But I stayed because I saw how much he wanted this relationship, and he tried everything. He even went to a men's group of a bunch of ragers, and he became the poster boy. But these events still happened. So I thought, you know what? Forget this. Goodbye. I'm out. And I went and was staying with my friend who was going through a divorce and figuring out what is my next move. And it came to a point where I never wanted to see this guy ever again. Well, coincidences happened. The second one completely disarmed me. first one, are you familiar with A Course in Miracles?
Yes, and I actually wrote that down in my notes. Yeah, I never finished it. I got about 3/4 of the way
Okay,
through.
I read it the second time and it was more spectacular, So I have this rule that, if I need guidance or something or wise words, I just open the book and I have to read what's there, even if I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
So I woke up one morning and this was at my friend's house and I was just looking forward to my next chapter, like, what am I going to do? And I'm going to read. I'm going to open the book. I opened the book to this chapter titled The Healed Relationship. And I'm like, no, I don't want to read this, but I had to. So basically what I got out of it, and you can read the same thing over again and get something completely different. It was like, God is in everyone. And when your brother comes to you to connect with you with his hand outstretched, and you say no to your brother, you say no to God. And I'm like, oh, no. Okay, so what do I have to lose? Okay, if he calls me. He called me the next day, and he wanted to get together. So I said, okay, I have to. So he comes over, and I actually sat him across from me on the dining room table. And I said to him, I want you to know that the only reason that you are sitting at this table is because of a miracle. And he said, well, I have a miracle for you. That's not his vocabulary, And I'm like, okay, you first. And he said, well, Sunday I took the fountain apart to fix the pump or something. And we have this fountain and it's a basin and then it has this tall cement tube that the water comes out, hugs the thing and goes into the basin. And as he's talking, he's kind of struggling to get his wedding ring off. And he said, so the column slipped and fell on my hand. And I am looking at his hand that he's trying to take this wedding with, and it was a bruise with a little scratch. I mean, that should be hamburger. And he takes off the ring, and it was squashed. The ring took the weight of gold.
Wow. Oh, my gosh.
So
he took that as a sign.
I took it as a sign. He said it was a miracle.
Okay.
And what saved him? The wedding band. I mean, come on, who can make this up? And he said, I'm not fixing it. So to me, this was just, we started to talk and spend time together. And I needed something that dramatic to disarm me. And I got it. Okay. So then I was going to Hawaii to be the matron of honor, my best friend's third wedding for the third time.
Full wedding.
So
wow.
I thought, okay, I wanted him to come with me, but he had sabotaged so many romantic getaways. I was very tentative, but I thought, no, I'm going to trust. And he came and I grabbed a book, and when we got into the cab, I thought, oh no, not Endless Energy. I mean, I wanted a novel, So anyway, but I had this book, Endless Energy, written by Deborah Green, who's a kinesiologist. And so I started reading the book. I had started reading the book, that's right. And she's talking about these energy clearings that she does that heal. And I'm like, oh my God, I want one of those, I mean, it sounded just amazing. And it was like quantum. And then I would go back and forth in the book, reading the citations in the back. And Dr. Larry Dossey says prayer works. And going back and forth. And then I'm at the back of the book, and it says Deborah Green, Maui, Hawaii. And that is where our plane is going. So now what do you do with this? So we had layover, contact her. I had the information right there. And I told her when we were available, and that she would do both of us energy clearing. And so I said, I have to ask my Frank. And I said, Frank, look, Maui, not only was she in Maui, she was on Kihei Road, and our condo was on Kihei Road. And so I pointed it out to him, and I said, if you agree, it's your Christmas present. So he says, it's meant to be. So we had our energy clearing. That was in 2009. He has not had one episode. I am married to my dream guy.
That is a miracle.
So the thing is, again, obviously, the universe didn't want us to split up. I did. That was my will. I never wanted to see him again. And these things happened, but I read it. I read the chapter, okay? I said, yes, come over. I called Deborah Green up and I said, so it just didn't happen.
You had to take the steps. I mean, nobody can blame you for wanting to get out of somebody that was a rager. I mean, that, life can be very not comfortable with somebody that's always raging, you're on eggshells.
Exactly.
Yeah, and walking away from it was probably a good thing for him as well, too, to, realize what he had in you. And then when he said he had a miracle, it's a miracle that his hand didn't get crushed. He wasn't thinking as far as like a divine miracle that you think of miracles, but it literally landed on his ring, and the ring held it up.
So again, one miracle isn't less or more than the other. However, I would judge and say that the string of miracles that saved my marriage was more important than the two that gave me what I needed for the wedding. So I would give it more importance.
So with that, how do you bridge the gap between science and spirituality in your work, particularly when discussing topics like miracles and consciousness beyond death?
Well, surprisingly, science is catching up to us, okay? So I was very surprised. I mean, I knew that scientists studied consciousness, but I had no idea that they studied coincidences. So there is this outfit in the UK called the Scientific and Medical Network. And somehow, I don't know, they found out about me, and I am now a member. It's a group of esteemed scientists that study the paranormal. So they invited me to, and I'm the only non-academic, non-scientist. But I figured out that they needed me as much as I needed them, because their research kind of validates my experiences, but my experiences also validate their research. It's like, oh, look at this little ordinary lady. These things are happening to her, what we're researching. And so when I wrote the book, there were just too many events to cram into one book. So I picked out the ones that had to do with death. So, and it kind of pretty much became the body of the second book. And 7 of the chapters are my experiences with after death communication, and 3 are very close friends. And you just can't pick out which one is stranger. And I just find it, and a lot of these scientists had no interest in the second book. I mean, they're writing about NDEs, near-death experiences, is fine because, they've been studied for decades, but not my book. And until recently, just before its publication, a new field of science has emerged, and it's ADC, after-death communication. So and the executive director of this scientific and medical network admonishes skeptics because there is such a huge volume of anecdotal evidence. And Do you want me to give you an example of something that just happened and it's not in the book?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Yes,
the thing is, so these two things, one, it was my eye surgeon. I told her about my book and she says, well, I have a story for you. I go, okay. And she said, well, I had to go to a gala with my husband and I did not want to go because I was dead tired. I had a full day of surgeries and I didn't want to go to this gala, but I had to go to the gala. So we go, and then I had to take the babysitter home because it's my husband's rule never to be alone with a female babysitter. So, and she said, I was coming back. I was driving back and I heard my grandmother scream, wake up! And she said, I came to, and I was heading into a brick wall. And she was saved by her grandmother. And what just happened to me, which I think is just astounding. So about 4 months ago, I lost one of my oldest and dearest friends. I mean, just this wonderful woman, this global citizen. I mean, she was Indian, but born and raised in South Africa. Her brothers were in Australia, so she would go to Australia. Her undergraduate was in Edinburgh, Scotland. She got her PhD here in University of Pennsylvania. And 2 days before she died, I had the best fortune of having a wonderful FaceTime visit with her, where she told me that I was her sister and that she loved me. So about a month ago, I'm walking down the street and I'm thinking of her. And after thinking and thinking about her, whatever it was, I said to her, I said, Pushpa, I said, if anybody's going to give me a sign, it's you. And I said, maybe this is too soon, but when you're ready, I want you to give me a sign. The very next morning, got a Facebook friend request from her.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, I've had this happen before a couple of times where like somebody will make a friend request that's already my friend. Like somebody's trying to hack me or something. I don't know. But from 600 friends or whatever I have, I mean, she's the one. But again, the byline to that book says Consciousness Beyond Death, True Stories of Signs, Messages, and Timing. So it's the timing that makes it miraculous. It's like it could have happened 2 days before or a month after, but it was right the next morning. So she was ready. She was ready. And so now that this new field, so coincidences is trending in science. Okay. And all of this is through consciousness. You know, I mean, how can this communication happen if there was no consciousness? So the skeptics, the ones that say, no, you know, when you die, poof, you're gone. That's it. So what they believe is that our brains manufacture consciousness, but our brains hook into consciousness. So that is, and you know, and the more, you know, I people read about, they have a story to tell me, you know, so, and it's interesting. I had somebody ask me, why do you think so many of these things happen to you? I mean, everybody has a story, right? But why do you think so many just keep happening to you? And I thought about it, and I believe it's because of my mother. Now, my mother was a deeply religious woman, but she also, that was also her source of spirituality. She was extremely spiritual, and she never pushed it on me. But from when I was a toddler, so Greek is my first language, and she would, you can take any word and make it into a diminutive, like you can take like the water glass, okay? And you can call it the little water glass. And so the way she framed it, it was like, okay, she said, she would say, if you ever want something, anything you want, you just ask little baby Jesus. And little baby Jesus loves children, and just ask little Jesus. And if you're scared and you need protection, you just ask the little Virgin Mary. So think what happened here is from when I was a toddler, like communicating with the unseen beings was perfectly natural. And I believe that because that was just kind of ingrained, it just, like I would ask for things. Like I'll just walk down the street and ask. And
You didn't have the blocks
yeah,
for that.
and the divine language of coincidence. So because it's a memoir, it's pretty much chronological. But there are 2 chapters that are thematic. So one is called Please, which is about prayer. And the other one is Thank You, which is about gratitude, which I believe is the highest form of prayer. And it's important for your audience to know that the purpose of the book was not to convince anyone of anything. This is what works for me. These are the prayers I do. You can make up your own, but this is what works for me. And so that is because I just want to share that I'm not special. I'm just not special. If people learn to, some of these things could be maybe nuances. Maybe it's not slap in your face, squashed wedding ring, but you learn, you evolve, and you're training yourself. It's like, and so the more that happens, the more you believe. The more you believe, the more you take action. And all of this is through our intuition. And the more our intuition is honed and trained, the more we get what we need, the more we trust, the more we have faith. And that's how faith builds.
So expanding on that, how can someone differentiate between a coincidence that is a sign and one that is merely random? Is it the training, or how does somebody help start believing like that they can manifest miracles in their own life? Are there any specific practices or mindsets that can help with this process?
Okay, in my case, and I'm, because everyone's different, but in my case, as I gave the examples, there was no cerebral activity. Okay. I mean, it wasn't like, no, could this get me what I want? Or is this just random? Because I mean, to a non-believer, it's like, you dial a number and you get somebody that just that somebody. That's kind of random. Okay. That's random. But then we have another layer here. He happens to own this beautiful hotel, and then, it just happens to, and he didn't own it for that many years either. And so it's like, wait a second, that, it's like, wait, we have to connect here. And because of that. So, I mean, I bet you that the coincidences happen all the time. Like just the other day, I was writing the word together, and somebody on the news said the word together at the same time that I was writing it down. Well, that's pretty random. I mean, like, what do you do? I mean, what kind of action can I take? Let's see, together. What could that mean? No, it's random. But these other things, it was just not thinking. It's like, oh, we've got to meet, So it's an inner bell. It's your intuition is your best friend, and you pay attention to it, and then it calls to you.
Yes. So you learn it's your intuition, you're listening to it. So that's how you can differentiate it. It's a feeling, and you don't second guess it. It just, you're propelled to take action on it.
Yeah. And so
Yeah. And you learn over time. And as one miracle leans into another miracle, it's like you start trusting it
Yes.
and you start learning how
Yes.
to hone
So I
it.
didn't want to get married. I didn't want children. And I absolutely, the idea of writing a book was so unsavory to me. And here I am, married to my dream earth companion. I have this beautiful, loving daughter. And that was a whole other thing, the way we got together and her being in a homeless shelter and end up, adopting her. And now look, she is married to this Greek architect living in Greece. She has 3 masters. She's blindingly happy. Mother's Day is my new favorite holiday, And then I have these 2 books out too. So it was not my will, but thank God that my brain was open ajar just enough to go with it. So I would say that I was at a book club. I was at a book club that it was my book read, and they invited me to the book club. And this woman gets up there and she goes, well, I want these things to happen to me. They don't happen to me. These things only happen to you. And then she tells me how she describes 2 miracles, like how her son, somehow he was sick there was a mental illness and they found somebody just popped in to say that she should take him to this certain doctor and then he's fine, and something with her husband. I said, you just told me 2 miracles that happened to you. I mean, if this hadn't happened, if that person hadn't appeared, you probably would have been in the same predicament, I mean, so it's to kind of give it a chance, give it a chance that there is something that is bigger than us, that knows. I mean, the whole book, I mean, honestly, I actually turned the second book into an audiobook. And so when I was reading, I did the reading myself, the recording, and I couldn't believe these things happened to me. So they are happening, and the scientists are catching up. And so this group, Scientific and Medical Network, so they invited me also to help plan and participate in the Synchronicity Summit that was so well received that they just published a book, and it's a collection of essays of all these scientists and their personal stories. And I mean, almost all of them, it's like, well, I didn't believe until these things started to happen to me. And my essay was accepted. So I'm chapter 17. And the title of the book is The Playful Universe, and it's already available.
Playful Universe, chapter 17. Well, let me segue into that. I have 2 more questions, but let's segue into how people can find you just mentioned The Playful Universe. You're in chapter 17. How can people find your books and anything that you're offering? I mean, you have are there any new projects or books on the horizon for you? What can your readers and followers look forward to?
Well, no, I think I said it all. I don't think I have anything more to say,
Okay, great.
So I'm toying with a children's book, but that is it's in kind of precognitive mode. It just kind of comes and goes, these ideas. But so my website is sophiademas.com. And I would invite people to click on, because you can subscribe and find out, like when the audiobook comes out. And this, I haven't.
Are you going to be the voice on the audiobook,
No.
or did you hire someone? Yay! I love it when the author.
Yes. So, and I'm working on the second Actually, it is the first book, The Divine Language of Coincidence. And so people can subscribe. And if you go onto my website, there's a page called My Influencers. And it is 8 people that I've had personal contact with.
I saw
yes,
that.
And they're, I consider them my mentors. And if, one of your listeners, if they listen to just read one blurb, I would say the one that wins is Abbess Emiliani. And you can't miss her. She's the nun. But it is a first-hand account of bilocation. It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. So that people could find that quite interesting.
Yes. And some of the others, the physicist, I think I saw the Dr. Field, of course, I can't read my writing, the Tao of Physics. I think that's in my dad's library.
Yes,
my dad had like thousands and thousands of books. Yes. Because he taught physics, but I'm going to go back to his library and try to look for that one. And then you mentioned Jimmy Carter. He wrote a foreword for one of your books, or he read the introduction?
No, what happened with him was I wrote him, and told him I was writing. This is the first book. And I wanted to know how if he has any problem resolving his faith and being a scientist. So he's a atomic engineer by trade, And so what he did, these are treasures, So he wrote on my letter and said, no, there's no problem, no issue between my faith and science. And I have also been privy to scientists who were atheists, and it was their scientific work that brought them into their faith. The one case in point is Dr. Francis. He was one of the group that decoded the DNA. I believe I forgot his name. But anyway, he was this complete, I think he wrote a book, The Language of God. The Language of God. I think that's in that book. And he was this atheist, but because of what he saw with this decoding of the DNA, he's like a Bible thumper now, So I believe that this is a confirmation that, that's opening people's minds, that these things they're real, but also the ones that it doesn't matter how much proof. It's no, none of this is real. We die, we're gone. It just doesn't even matter. People close to me, they know my stories, and I just cannot believe that they are where they are. And in fact, I have to give you this one little example because this has floored me. So Galileo had this friend who's a philosopher in Genoa. And so his friend was this, avowed atheist. And he knew exactly what's real and what's not. So Galileo was telling him about the universe and that the earth is not flat. Our planets revolve around the sun. And this guy would hear none of it. Galileo begged him to look through his telescope, and the guy would not look through the telescope. Because why? Because if it was for real, then his whole worldview had to change. And people don't want that. They want to just, I worked too hard to believe this. So that's the way it goes.
Yes, they don't want to face their whole belief system and look at something else that confronts that belief system. But you really need to. You have to open with curiosity. There's so many things that we don't know that we don't know. What is that? We don't know. You don't know what you don't know what you don't
something
know,
like
or
that.
something like that. So, yes. So this has been a wonderful conversation. Just 2 more questions. I would love to hear what is one key takeaway you hope listeners will gain from your journey and the work you've done in understanding divine intelligence in consciousness?
Okay, what I want people to know is that miracles are real. Okay, and they are real. They can happen to you, and there's some, if under some scrutiny, you may make some connections that this miracles have already happened to you. So what I wanted to share to the world basically is that if these things can happen to an ordinary person, that these miracles are accessible to everyone. That is my hope.
I love that. I'll take that into my own day and my own life, as I feel like I've fallen away from the path a little bit, but I always come back to it. So the last question you probably heard since you listened to one of my episodes with another guest is, I ask all my guests this question, and it's how we end this conversation. And that is for you what does it mean for you to live with an awakened heart?
Well, I think those 2 words say it all. An awakened heart is an open. And if you are open in heart and mind, you are a magnet for the richness of the universe.
I love that. It's so beautiful. That's so wonderful. I love that. It's an openness. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Sophia, for joining us today on the Awakened Heart podcast. I really enjoyed our conversation. I can't wait to, hopefully my listeners are going to get out and get your book and connect with you. But thank you again so much. I love all the work that you're doing, and really it ignites hope in somebody's heart that they are privy to coincidences and miracles all the time.
Thank you.
And
thank you for what you do. Thank you for providing this platform.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful rest of your day. We're both on East Coast, so it's the end of the day for us. Thank you again. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Awakened Heart podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, head on over to your favorite podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, you can reach me at theawakenedheartpodcast.com.